into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the MLB DFS Core Pick video, Core Pick live Monday, September 11th. Looks like we're lagging just a little bit here this morning, so I do apologize for that. But what we'll be doing in this video, we'll be going over a weather report for today for the 11-game main slate over on FanDuel. We'll be going over my core picks. It's going to be 5 players in total, 1 pitcher, 4 hitters, a combination of past history in their respective matchup, plus recent history as well. And then last but not least, we'll get over to my cheat sheet, talk about my top GPP teams to stack for today. That cheat sheet is 100% free as always. It's up on Facebook, it's up on Twitter, it's up on the YouTube community tab. There is no recap today since we have not had a video since Thursday. I do apologize that there was not one on Friday. Had a lot of things going on that morning, so was unable to get to it at that point in time. But without further ado, we'll begin looking at this weather for today. I know there is a couple potential rain spots as we get talking through it. There is 11 games in total. We got Toronto, Texas. That game's in a dome, so we're not worried about that. Out in Boston, 64% chance of rain for the Red Sox and the Yankees. So that's going to be one that we monitor very, very closely today as the day moves along. Then we have the New York Mets, 60% chance of rain there for the Mets and the Arizona game. Those are going to be 2 interesting games, ones that we're keeping an eye out on. In Chicago, we got 61% chance of rain for the White Sox and Royals there. So a lot of rain to start off the day. Then we have the Brewers and the Marlins. That game is in a dome or retractable roof, so we're not worried about that. 15% chance of rain in Minnesota for the Twins and the Rays, so we'll just keep an eye on that, but should be probably pretty good. The Astros are in a dome, so we're not too worried about the Houston and Oakland game. And then we get over to Colorado, 17% chance of rain, obviously, with the way Colorado weather obviously is. We'll be watching that one closely just to make sure nothing crazy happens. And then we move over to the Seattle in the dome versus the Angels. Not worried there. 0% chance in San Francisco for the Giants and the Guardians. And then last but not least, we have the Dodgers game in LA. 3% chance are in there. So none too major. Some games that we'll definitely be watching throughout the day because it could make a very big change to the slate overall, whether or not they get delayed or postponed altogether. So we're going to get off this screen. We'll get over to FanDuel, talk about the core 5 picks that I do have for today overall. And like I said, it's going to be 1 pitcher, 4 hitters, combination of past history plus recent history just in general. So I'm starting off at the pitcher position today with Gavin Williams. He's $7,200, averaging about 26 fantasy points per game on the season. Goes against the Giants today. He's never faced them in the past. He does have just a tiny bit of history versus Paul DeJong, who's been on a couple different teams this season, but looks like a pretty decent matchup for Gavin Williams. A high strikeout opportunity, paying down at the pitcher position allows you to pay up at some other different spots, but a lot of viable pitchers out there, especially on the high end today. So if you want to go with one of them, does make some sense. The only bad thing about Gavin Williams, only the 2 wins so far on the season, but he's pitched pretty well at 3.34 ERA. And you see most of these starts have been relatively decent, a little bit more limited upside just because he hasn't been getting those wins. But if you can get a quality start to win, strike out, 7 or more batters tonight against San Francisco, is going to look like a pretty good play overall. And I think that's pretty reasonable at a pay down spot just in general. And then we're going to move down to our hitters. So kind of paying up at all the spots today for the most part. So we got Rafael Devers at $3,900. He is, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself here. He's 4 for 10 with 1 home run in his career versus Clark Schmidt. He has at least 1 hit in 7 out of his last 9 games. And 4 of those have been multi-hit games. So some pretty good recent history, some pretty good history in the past for Clark Schmidt. Obviously, this is one of the games that does have some weather affecting it. So could be a spot where we ultimately pivot off of him. If we do need to change at that point in time, I will try to list a pivot down in the comments below. But on the season in totality, we got Rafael Devers hitting 272, 29 home runs, 93 RBIs. About 11.5 fantasy points per game at $3,900. Maybe a little bit more than I like to pay for him at this point in time, but still like this matchup very much. Then we're going to move down to Bo Bichette at $3,000. He is a really cheap price tag at this point in time. He's just coming back from injury. It's his 3rd game back, averaging about 10.5 fantasy points per game, hitting .313, 18 home runs, 64 RBIs on the season. Goes against Dane Dunning as the expected starting pitcher for the Texas Rangers today. He's done really well versus Dunning in the past. 5 for 11 with 3 home runs, so definitely do like that upside. Like I said, if you look here, he's only been back for 2 games. He had a multi-hit game, 2 for 5. First game back and then 0 for 3 yesterday. So I'm not really too worried about that. A little bit more hit or miss, but you had the injury piled in there as well. Do like the history that he does have in the past for Dane Dunning, and at $3,000 looks like a pretty good value overall. Then we're going to keep moving down with two Houston outfielders. We got Yordan Alvarez at $4,100 here. And he is going against Ken Waldichuk, at least as the primary pitcher, it looks like, for Oakland today. 3 for 6 with 1 home run versus Waldichuk. And he's on a 5-game hitting streak. 3 of those games have been multi-hit games. 301 average, 26 home runs, 85 RBIs, almost 14 fantasy points per game at $4,100 on the season for Yordan Alvarez. Looks like a really strong play once again today. We'll have to see who ultimately ends up being kind of that opener for Oakland today. It looks like somebody will be it before Waldichuk. We also saw last week, I believe it was, where Luis Medina pitched the game that they thought Waldichuk was going to. So we're just going to keep an eye on that. If anything does majorly change throughout the day, we'll also leave that down in the comments. And then we're going to keep moving down with his teammate and Kyle Tucker at $3,500. Another guy that's done pretty well versus Waldichuk in his career. 2 for 4 with 1 home run. He's got at least 1 hit in 5 out of his last 6 games. So he's on a pretty decent hot streak as well. 298 batting average, 26 home runs, 103 RBIs. Really solid season for him. Averaging about 13 fantasy points per game, which looks pretty good at $3,500 as well. So definitely like the upside of both those Astros hitters, like the upside of all 4 of these hitters in general. And then the potential upside in their pay down option at pitcher in Gavin Williams. Obviously, if you want to pay up for one of those premium pitchers instead, whether it's a Tyler Glasnow, a Framber Valdez, or somebody else like that, you can definitely do that and then pay down at some of your hitter spots as well. A lot of different ways that we could approach today's slate overall. But if you would ultimately go with the 5 players that I do have listed here, you have $13,300 remaining, just over $3,300 per player remaining at that point in time. So, a lot of room and flexibility you can kind of pay up for a player or 2 if you still want to do that. Or if you want to take a more balanced approach, that's definitely fun on tonight's slate as well. But with that being said, we're going to stop sharing this screen. We'll get over to that cheat sheet and talk about my top GPP teams to stack for today overall. So I'm just waiting for this to load. Looks like we're lagging just a little bit here at this point in time. So I'm going to give that a second to load and everything else like that. But in terms of the top GPP teams to stack for today overall, we got the Houston Astros. Talked about 2 of their hitters in the core picks. Going against Ken Waldichuk is the primary pitcher, most likely for the Oakland A's today. Looks like a really favorable matchup for them. Jose Abreu has actually quietly been pretty good as of late too. So if you want to sneak him in with that Astro stack, obviously Jose Altuve has been hitting really well the last week or so as well. A lot of different ways that we can approach it. Jeremy Pena is pretty cheap at shortstop as well. Then we get over to the New York Mets going against Zach Davies. Another rain spot, but a lot of these hitters have hit him really well in the past, whether it's Brandon Nimmo, Jeff McNeil, a couple other ones here and there. So those would be the 2 primary ones for me tonight. If you always want to play Pete Alonso, you could do that. And then some other cheaper options there available for the Mets team as well. Then we have the Chicago Cubs playing in Coors Field going against Kyle Freeland. A lot of them have hit him pretty well in the past. A little bit of limited history for some of those hitters, but Cody Bellinger is going to be a definite standout there. Dansby Swanson, who ultimately didn't make it into the cheat sheet just because of Bo Bichette being a great value at $3,000. Dansby Swanson very much involved versus Kyle Freeland today at 7 for 15 with 1 home run versus him. And then last but not least, I have the Dodgers listed as well, going against Pedro Avila. Not a long list of history there, so not a lot of them came into the cheat sheet, but pretty much everybody in their lineup has at least 1 hit versus him in very limited sample size. So could be a very interesting one there. If you're looking for some other ones in addition to that, be sure to check out the Patreon at patreon.com/CoachGreatSports. You'll get the notable hitter versus pitcher matchups, pitchers, whether or not I would consider them in play, avoid, or a risky play overall, as well as some additional stacks based on the slate, especially for some of these larger slates, the ones that do not fit into my cheat sheet. But with that being said, it's kind of what I do have in terms of MLB DFS core picks for today, the top stacks, and kind of the weather report. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed. Hopefully you found it all informative. If you have any additional questions whatsoever related to MLB DFS, be sure to drop them down in the comments below and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. Also, be sure to let me know your favorite play on tonight's slate, whether it's someone from my core 5 picks, whether it's someone from my top GPP stacks, or whether it's a completely different player you guys think I missed. Definitely interested in hearing what you have to say. But with that being said, that's pretty much all that I do have at this point in time. If you are brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, would ask that you do take a minute and consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, we got MLB DFS Monday through Friday. We got CFL DFS once a week. We'll be working in some NFL DFS content this week. Was feeling a little bit under the weather last week, so really just had the cheat sheets out over on the sports affiliation panel. Like I said, Friday got pretty busy in general, plus being sick on the top of that. It was not a good combination, but for week 2 of NFL DFS, be sure to expect a video there as well. Also got my sheet up on the Patreon page and those cheat sheets up on the Sports Affiliation website as well. But with that being said, that's all that I have at this point in time. Do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in, whether you're watching live or on replay. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in MLB DFS tonight.